How's it going, everybody? Thanks for joining us here at Emerald City Hockey's post-game live. RJ, we knew the Kraken probably weren't going to go on a 47 game win streak to close out the year, but it hurts when this happens.
It does. Yeah. You can't win them all. And especially the fashion that this loss came in, it felt like everything kind of ran out of steam, whether it was the injury bug biting again, sometimes mid game, especially with Adam Larson. I mean, that's going to be a huge concern, or just, getting shut out, right? They really weren't able to generate much offensively. And it just felt like the whole team, for whatever reason, for multiple reasons, I think just kind of ran out of gas today.
Yeah, I said it on the Discord in this one that, look, there was a ton of things going on that kind of explain why the team looked as off as they did. I think the injuries they play an important role. The fact that you're in the middle of your longest road trip plays a role in all of this. I think the fact that this game started at 10 in the morning for their bodies plays a big role in this, because RJ, normally they start like a morning skate around 10:30. It goes 40 minutes, maybe an hour, and then they shower up, they go home. And what do all hockey players do when they go home after their morning skate, RJ?
Take a nap.
Universally. Yeah, they all take a nap. So for the third period of this, their bodies are used to being asleep. Like, that's a problem, right? Like, that's something they're not used to. I know they're professionals and all that stuff, but when your body is as trained as their bodies are, I have to imagine that was a little bit of a factor. And yeah, just the bottom line is all good things must come to an end, including the streak, the point streak, and the winning streak that the Kraken are on. Although, RJ, not all good things come to an end all the time, because we're still sponsored by Flat Stick Pub doing this, right? Like, that's a good thing. That's still going
all season.
on. That's still going on. Yeah, you know what? And today would be a great day if you got the day off work. I know not everybody does, but if you got the day off work for the holiday, you celebrate, you watch the game, didn't quite go that well, you can go head over to Flat Stick, get some midday mini golf in. That sounds pretty good to me, actually.
Yeah, definitely watch some playoff football and just, spend the rest of the day, in that competitive mindset, really try and kind of take out this loss on the putt course.
Exactly. Or the duffel board course. So
Right.
thanks so much to Flat Stick Pub for sponsoring us. Got a couple super chats here to kick us off. First one from Sean. As far as the loss, it happens, but this is the beginning of a rough 4 games. Is it time for Shane Wright, RJ?
Not yet. I don't think so. Again, I want to just see him continue to cook in Coachella Valley. If Matty Beniers is out long term, then maybe you start to think about it. But really, we just don't know the injury status for really any of these guys, him, Burakovsky, Larson. And I think that plays a big role. If Matty's able to come back, say, tomorrow, then no, of course you're not going with Shane Wright.
Yeah, and that's really part of the weirdness of all this, is the fact that we don't know the injury status of any of these players. I mean, obviously Larson gets hurt in this game, so that's the one to look at, and you can kind of wash away. But like, yeah, the fact that Vince Dunn was just a surprise scratch for all of us this morning, that's another one that's interesting. I mean, you and I were texting. We both think maybe it has something to do with the brawl he was in last game. That's kind of where my mind
seems
went.
to be the most obvious thing that it could have been. Although I will say, Dylan, on the Larson part of it, I went back and I watched every single shift that Larson took. I think 5 shifts in all in the first period. I didn't see anything obvious. He didn't seem to take any contact.
Yeah, I didn't notice anything either. That's scary, right? Like, that's kind of scary. Although at one point on the Root broadcast, when they were talking about Vince Dunn, Forsland said he was under the weather. So again, he could have meant injury for that, but maybe it was an illness, in which case we know how close the two of them are. I got to imagine if one of them gets sick, the other one probably does too, just because they're that in sync.
Yeah, and you know what? It could have traveled on the Davy Jones hat as it was passed, from Larson to Dunn there.
There you go. So, we'll see if it just ends up being that. The big thing with the Larson injury, though, is he is the Kraken Iron Man, right? Like, he is the only guy to have played in every game in this franchise's history. Would hate to see that not continue, especially when, seemingly nothing happened there. Super chat here from Light. Not to be bent out of shape, but this is how the streak ends. If it takes our top C and D pair out to end our streak and a rough start time, then we are a good team. Time to start a new streak. And I do think there is something to that, RJ. It took a lot for the Kraken to look kind of this off, this poor in a game, and even still it was close until the end, right? Like, at any point the Kraken felt like they could turn things around and really get one going here. And I'm going to go ahead and say it, just to add to what Light was saying there in the super chat. I kind of didn't want the streak to be going into that Edmonton game. Like the more I was thinking about it as this game was kind of happening, I was like, you know what, that might be good too, that you don't have the streak going into that Edmonton one either.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it can get you in a different mindset. You know, certainly they'll be more focused on that Edmonton game and maybe a little bit less pressure, I think.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think Light makes a good point that look, the Kraken really did struggle, I think, from having their top B pair out in this game. This has got to be the most time in a single game we've seen the Kraken without Adam Larson. Right,
Yeah,
because he's the Iron Man, and we always wondered, okay, what does this team look like with Adam Larson out of the lineup? We don't know. This was our closest indication of what that might look like. And with Vince Dunn out as well, like it didn't look good. They weren't able to generate a whole lot from the defensive zone through the neutral zone. And really, they just missed him so much on those breakouts.
they really, really did. That was very obvious in this game. It felt like they just were not able to play the game that they've been used to playing, especially over this win streak, right? As they adjusted their scheme to kind of fit that. That is part of what feeds into it. It's the controlled entries, but how do you get those controlled entries? You get that by moving up out of the zone. They were getting those long passes. They're able to have multiple forwards entering the zone all at the same time. All those things. It really kind of, when you take one piece out of that equation, it can have these ripple effects that can be pretty large. And in this game, I think that's what we saw. Jessica with the super chat. One day hockey will be so popular that football will have to change their schedule to fit ours. One can only hope, RJ.
That would be wonderful. You know, if Gary Bettman ever starts listening to you, Dylan, I think
Yeah.
that will bring that day about.
I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, there's that, or just stop scheduling games on these days. Or if you're going to build an arena in Buffalo, a place where you know it's going to snow, maybe you have a retractable roof on that thing so you don't have to deal with this seemingly every year. I don't know. Maybe that would be a good idea. You're going to pump all the taxpayers for all that money. At least you could do is put a roof and not need them to come in and shovel everything out of there.
You know, the Bills fans love it, Dylan. They're a different breed.
They are. They are. I'm just saying they deserve a roof too. Uh, good fans. They deserve a roof. Chip, I'll say my negativity is as most on Discord have already seen it today. Joey's stats are still okay despite deck being stacked against us. Sigh. Yeah, I mean, look, it's fair. I think all of us, right? It was a frustrating loss. Team didn't live up to expectations in this one. It was kind of a winnable game. There was the frustration with the reffing, I think, which is justifiable to an extent in this one as well. So look, I'm not gonna get on anybody if they're a little negative or a little salty after this one, RJ. But it is. I mean, there's still positives to look at here. Joey makes 30 saves, 938 save percentage. I mean, he's still rolling. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he was just fine. He certainly wasn't the reason for this loss. And I was wondering about, the back-to-backs. I think we both agreed that we would have started Drieger for this one and Joey for the next one. But certainly doesn't hurt you in this game having Joey there. I guess the worst thing is just that it's another good start from him that's kind of wasted, I guess, because you don't score a goal.
Yeah, which to be fair, they haven't wasted many of those recently. So that was good. And then, who could have predicted Larson going out, all the stuff that ended up happening. Again, who knows how long the Kraken really knew about the Vince Dunn situation either. Whatever that situation is, like we don't know.
He finished the game the other night. I mean, it's just not a lot of time in between.
Yeah, so who knows what was really going on behind the scenes for the Kraken in this one. We probably never know, but yeah, there's some good stuff there. Thank you everybody for the super chats. Just go the regular chat over here. I'm upset. Brooke, a bummer on to the next one, and I think that's important, especially with the fact that you got to play again tomorrow night, RJ, at MSG. You really do have to have that mindset of on to the next one after a game like this.
Right. I mean, chance to turn it around right away. That's the positive. But man, you don't get much rest after a game where I feel like the team could just maybe use a day or two in between to just kind of catch their breath, maybe get healthy, but you got to go right back at it.
Yep, as CJ saying, hard to win when you're missing so many key players. That it is. Lindsay, though, looking on the bright side, if the pattern follows, the Kraken will start January 2025 with a 10-game win streak. That's right. Every year, RJ, the Kraken will just start a new year and increase that winning streak one game longer.
I like that trend. I would certainly take that.
Yes. Via Ren, mornings should be abolished. Do you mean morning hockey or just morning in general? Because as a morning person, I kind of like them.
I'm with you, Via Ren. Abolish mornings. I try and sleep through as much of them as I can.
Oh, come on. Wasn't it fun? Like I got up, waited a little while, kind of had a brunch to get ready for the start of the game, some French toast, some bacon. I thought it was fun.
Ooh, nice. Okay, French toast and bacon. That's good. I did have some blueberry waffles, so that was the best part of the morning, I think.
I know. I like it. It was like a an NFL Sunday kind of thing, right? Like
Yeah,
you get ready, the game start at 10. It's like, all right, let's
yeah.
go. Start my
If
day
any of
off
you had
with
a
some
good
sports.
good breakfast or brunch with the game, let us know about it.
Yes, yes. Please let us know. How'd you guys get ready for morning hockey? Because it's definitely a little bit different. As I see Jake further down, hockey's meant for the evening. I think most people would agree with you, Jake. Daytime games are cursed. I cannot be convinced otherwise. All right, so I'm not speaking to a favorable audience here, I guess, with what I'm saying. Um, so many non-calls this game. Angriest I've been at the refereeing during a game in a while. The missed too many men one had me seething. I mean, B, you certainly would be joining Eddie Olczyk, I think, in this one, given the way he was on the broadcast. But it is understandable. There was some stuff in this one, RJ, that seemed a little bit worse than normal, we'll say.
I guess so. I mean, for a while, look, I don't know what is up with Eddie Olczyk today. He clearly got up on the wrong side of the bed. It seemed like from the first
He was
shift, he
hot.
was just
He was hot.
determined to get angry at the officiating. So I think he went a little bit overboard with that. I think overall it was fairly reasonable. The worst call in my mind was just the missed one from Crosby on McCann
Yeah.
at the end. And that's one where I was like, oh, darn. I was going to come on here on the post game and say, look, the officiating actually was not that bad. That one was definitely a missed call and could have been better. Like the interference thing with Malkin, they called it the other way later in the game. I thought that was consistent at least. The too many men, like there's a cushion, right? That they give them from the bench if nobody's touching the puck. And certainly with their already shorthanded, I just don't think that gets called very often.
Well, so that is what I was gonna say. The too many men one I can excuse kind of because part of that is like if the team's not playing the puck, they kind of don't call it, right? Like now you can't like totally push it. If you have 10 guys out there, they'd probably call it at some point. But we do know that if the team's not playing the puck, they really don't like to call that. So that's at least consistent with past reffing experiences. But yeah, I think there was still some, and that the McCann one was really rough. There
But
was
I
like
mean,
the late
that's just the Sidney
change.
Crosby treatment. That's just Crosby's whole career.
I don't get that. He's had over 100 penalty minutes in a season before. Like, come on. Like, where does this all come from all the time? I don't know. I think that was just a missed call. Get the late change thing. Like, I don't know. Mike Sullivan's a scary guy. I guess I forgive the refs for if he gives you a stern look. Hackstall needs to work on the stern look. Hackstall's too nice.
Yeah, his looks too neutral. Needs to be a little angrier.
It is. You're just amazed at how blue his eyes are when you're looking at him. You're not fearing for your life like when Mike Sullivan stares you down. It's the difference.
You should tell Hackstall that next time you're up here, and then maybe you'll be fearing for your life.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. It's still a compliment. Let's see. Sick bug in the locker room for Lars and Dunn? Question mark from Maddie there, or just the effects of putting your body on the line? Again, like my best working theory for all this, RJ, is that maybe there's something going around the locker room just because look, in all facets of my life, here, up there, everywhere, it seems like people are just getting sick right now.
Yeah, feels like everybody is fighting off a little something too. And Hackstall, I don't think he was necessarily referring to illnesses, but he was saying how after last game, how proud he was of the group for not giving up. And he said, look, this time of year, everyone's kind of dealing with something. And, he probably was referring to injuries, but that could also be illnesses as well.
Yeah, definitely. Got a super chat here from Light. I do think Shane should get the call up. He's playing tonight in Coachella Valley, but we need some life, especially if Maddie is down. Shows trust from the org. I agree with that last statement, right? It totally would show trust from the organization. I could see if maybe they don't go with him right now just because he's been he's cooled off from the hot start he had to the season down in Coachella Valley. That being said, RJ, one of the ways you could turn that around, get him back, feeling things would be to give him a call up and let him join the Kraken. You've got 6 games you could still work with before you got to worry about burning the year on his ELC. If you just need somebody to fill in for a game or two to close out a road trip, there's worse options. They did it before.
Yeah, given that that's the amount of games you have, I think you'd want to give him a little bit more runway and certainly not as soon as tomorrow if he's playing tonight in Coachella Valley. I don't want to just rush him out on a plane across the country to New York. That doesn't seem like a good idea. But again, if Maddie's out longer term, then I do think you have to start thinking about it, maybe starting with that Edmonton game.
Right, although they did that for Colorado, right? Like, with him and Winterton, they just got him on a
Yep.
plane, they were playing the next night, like, that's the way this goes, and like I said, if it's just gonna be for a game or 2, I could see that really helping him reset then when he goes back to Coachella Valley, and maybe he starts cooking again there, like, it's just a change of scenery, kick in the pants, whatever you wanna call it, I think that could be good for him long term down there.
Yeah.
I'll join
Also,
everybody in that.
from Nicole here saying Kate Shefty just confirmed Hack said Lars left because of illness. So it is an
Okay,
illness for Adam Larson. That's good. That's a relief that it's
yeah.
not an injury. Hopefully the Ironman streak can continue tomorrow. That's a tough ask. When you're
I was gonna
sick the
say,
very next day.
it's really, really tough, especially because if he was sick enough to start this game but not finish it, like, he's gotta be really feeling it. That's gonna be tough. This is one where it's unfortunate you have all the forward injuries and everything too, RJ, because I would say, and this is kinda ridiculous, I know, but you could go 7 defensemen tomorrow night, start Adam Larson, give him, like, 2 shifts, and then pull him for the rest of the game.
Yeah, you know what? Or
Keep the
just kind of
streak
have him as
alive.
an
The
extra in
problem is
case.
you don't have the bodies to do that right now, like, everybody's hurt.
Yeah, that's right. You don't. I mean, and I imagine maybe Vince Dunn dealing with a similar thing. Although maybe if Dunn's good enough to go, you can dress Dunn, Larson, and just go with Evans as a seventh D and kind of see where that takes you and where you need to distribute the ice time.
Yeah,
Might make
yeah.
sense because I mean, going 11 forwards, they have no problem. They have enough healthy forwards.
Right, exactly. So we'll just have to wait and see if it's just like a 24-hour type thing. Lindsay, I fear that this might turn into a losing streak with just how many bodies are out, plus the back-to-back versus a good Rangers team tomorrow, then Edmonton. Even winning one of the next two would be a relief. I totally understand where you're coming from. It's a scary looking part of the schedule here, RJ. I do think the Kraken are going to have a chance to win at least one of those two games, though, just given how well they've been playing outside of these things. We don't really know how serious some of these injuries are. It's entirely possible some guys are back tomorrow, or certainly for the Edmonton game. I think they've got a good chance of maybe splitting the next two.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, look, these are two really tough opponents. If the Kraken come at it playing the way we know they can play, they've certainly got a chance in both of those games. But man, just these injuries piling up. You're starting to see it again where the team might be on the other side of the skill divide, I think. We haven't
Mhm.
seen that in a while from the Kraken with them healthy, but against these two teams, they're going to really have to work for those points.
Does this prove my theory, RJ, of Matty Beniers is actually playing elite level hockey despite not having the counting stat production to match it? That the moment he's out, this Kraken team just looked lost and unable to do anything offensively, including just get it out of the zone?
I don't want to say you're wrong on that, but I think there's too many other factors going on in this one. When you lose your entire D pair, you might be able to pin it on something else too.
Yeah, yeah. Seth with the super chat here. Time to brush off the loss, cry in your cup of, is that supposed to be Starbucks coffee and move on? Uh, Statics coffee? Is that a place up there in Seattle?
I don't know.
All right. Well, there's
Not
no
a
Seth
coffee
who can.
drinker.
Yep. Me
Got my
either.
water.
Yep. But I mean, look, it is one of those where it is you brush off this loss, you kind of move forward with it, and you just go, look, these games happen, especially when you're dealing with the injuries, you're dealing with illness, you're dealing with all the things that the Kraken are dealing with right now. You do have to just kind of move on from it. It's just one of those, and hopefully not get too upset by it. CJ, wondering why Hextall went with Joey today. Do you think that if they knew there was kind of a bug going around and because of the injuries that maybe influenced him going with Joey for this morning game, just try to add some stability to an already, kind of unstable situation?
That was my thinking as soon as I saw that Burakovsky, Beniers, and Dunn would be out for this game. I figured, okay, maybe you do go Joey, knowing you're a little shorthanded. You might need that extra little boost in net. And I think they got it. They just, were so shorthanded they weren't really able to generate a ton offensively.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Barbara, okay, I could do without the Euro-friendly start times. They're bad juju. I mean, look, there's only one left on the calendar, so we'll only have to deal with it one more time. Yeah, everybody definitely worried about missing Lars. Jake, I don't like the idea of missing our whole top D pair. That's certainly a scary thought, RJ.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not something the Kraken have really ever had to deal with in their history. And, very few teams can function that well without their top D pair for an extended period of time. You need at least one of those guys back. Thankfully, it's illness and not injury.
Yep, definitely. And then also here from CJ, not feeling good about chances tomorrow against the Rangers if we're still missing most of these guys. I think that's certainly a concern, RJ. However, I will say it's one of those you never know. With Drieger coming in, teams tend to step it up when their backups in net, especially if you're going to have a little bit more clarity on the injury situation, or at least say with like Lars, maybe you know if Vince Dunn was already planning on coming back tomorrow, but maybe now you think Lars is out. If you could just kind of get stabilized, it's a more normal starting time for you. It is against they're scary and they are a good team, but they are a beatable team in the Rangers. I don't know. I think the Kraken could surprise us tomorrow night with maybe a closer game than what we saw this morning.
Yeah, I mean, if you only allow 2 goals and play solid enough defensively like they did today, I mean, 2 goals aside from the empty netter, obviously, like you've got a good chance. There's still enough talent in this lineup that they can score goals. I mean, this is one of the deepest forward groups in the league. You just have to have somebody stepping up.
Yeah, exactly. Megna being taken on waivers is hurting more than before right now from B. I mean, definitely. Although Riker Evans was able to come in for this one, RJ, and I thought he played a solid game. It wasn't necessarily a spectacular game. It wasn't maybe everything we'd been hoping for Riker coming back into the lineup, but he did what he does best, which was he was solid defensively. He could help move the puck up, especially in a game where they seemed to be struggling with that. And then a little bit late on, I mean, some of the biggest kind of exciting moments from this Kraken team were him leading the charge.
Yeah, and I think he really stepped up, certainly as Larson went out with the injury. I mean, he played a career high 22 minutes. I know short career, not many games to compare it with, but still 22 minutes is a lot of ice time for a young defenseman in that situation. And I like how, especially as the game got later and you really need to start kind of chasing goals, Hackstall leaned on him more in the third period and gave him a lot of ice time, gave him opportunities. And at a certain point in the game, too, you got to tell your young defenseman, just go for it. We need goals. Let's try some things. Let's be aggressive.
Yeah, and it felt like he got that message. I don't know if the rest of the team got that message, but he got the message,
Yeah.
so that's all right. Lindsay, time for the Kraken to go to bed and hope they find a way to get right for tomorrow's game. Yes, hopefully they're all able to rest up, especially if there is an illness kind of going around. Edward, screw matinee games. All my homies hate matinee games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although Elizabeth chiming in here, let's not make Euro-friendly start times the issue here, okay? Understood,
Yes.
Elizabeth. Yeah.
Definitely. Oh man. Let's see. And you know what? Those always seemed fun up at CPA too, with the light coming in the window and everything like that. That always seemed
Yeah,
kind of
those
fun.
early games. And I was checking the 10 a.m. Pacific start times for the Kraken. They had 2 of them last season. They were 1-1, so mixed results.
Yeah, Sam saying not good considering the Firebirds also play today, making whoever they call up possibly have to play back-to-back games for different teams. Again, as we know from earlier this season with the Shane Wright and Ryan Winterton call-ups, Firebirds have a game later that day. Doesn't matter. They'll call up who they need to call up. They'll leave. They won't play in that game that night. They will just get on a plane and head to wherever the Kraken are. In this case, they'll be heading to New York. So I'm not too worried about that. If they know, and they obviously do know the situation, I think it'll be very telling if we see them make a move a little bit later on today, RJ, or early tomorrow. It'll kind of give us an idea if Vince Dunn will be back or if they think Adam Larson will be back, because I mean, that's I think the only way we're going to know realistically, knowing this team.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just looking at that as an indicator, if they call somebody up, because again, they don't have to. If one of those 2 can play, they're all right. They have their 6 defensemen, or potentially 7 if you want to go that route. But if they do call someone up, that's an indicator that one of Dunn or Larson cannot play tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. B, they said on the broadcast that Berkey, Maddie, and Dunn are all day today, so hopefully 1 or 2 of them will be fine for Edmonton at least. I think there is a good chance for that. Again, I think the fact that this was a morning game and things were a little bit different in general also kind of just would lead you to lean on the side of caution. I feel like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Just with things like I really do think that this team thinks that way. And I think that, obviously you don't want the winning streak to end. You want to be able to compete to your full ability, all of that kind of stuff. But I also think that this team is a team that would say it's not risk, injuring somebody with a weird start time. They're okay with that winning streak going away for a game if it means they're going to be strong for the next several.
And certainly, if you look at the context with the injuries as well, too, Andre Burakovsky, probably the most obvious one. You don't want to rush him back, whatever
Definitely.
it is that he's dealing with. Can't risk that. And then Matty Beniers, too. This is your franchise center who, again, we don't know what the injury is, but if you look at the play, you're thinking concussion might be possible there.
Yeah.
You obviously want to be cautious with that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And the last thing you want to do too, if it is an illness for Vince Dunn, as it is with Adam Larson, you don't want those guys pushing themselves too hard and having that linger longer than it has to, right? Them staying sick with whatever it is that they're sick with for longer than it has to. You want their bodies to be able to rest, recover fully, and then get back out there. The last thing you want to do is be out there dehydrating them, pushing them, making them tired, all of that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I think again with the morning game when they're used to be sleeping at this time, RJ, don't want them to push it too much if they don't have to.
Now with we were just talking about Coachella Valley and the call ups and everything too. I've seen this question in chat a few times, most recently from Maddie right here. But who's our next D-man Coachella call up? So if Dunn or Larson can't go, who would you call up from the Firebirds, Dylan?
That's a pretty good question actually. Let me pull up their roster here and take a quick
Personally,
look.
I would go Kale
You're
Fleury, but I saw some people in chat maybe saying Ville Ottavainen, who's having a heck of a season for the Firebirds.
So I was leaning on to Vinen just because he looked really good when I was there. Like he looked like he was going to be able to fill in at the NHL level. I mean, he's big body, he's obviously strong enough for it, all of that stuff. But what impressed me was he makes smart, simple plays with the puck. Right? Like again, I've seen probably less Firebirds games that a lot of people here in chat have this season, but in the limited time I have watched them, he makes really smart decisions with the puck and he's really good at holding the line, especially in the offensive zone, right? The puck that if you're trying to clear it along the boards out on his side, it's not going to happen. You can't force your way out physically from there. He really knows how to hold that line aggressively. I wish he kind of did that in the defensive zone too, as teams were transitioning through. But the point of the matter is he makes smart up ice passes when he's in the defensive zone. He holds the line in the offensive zone. I think you could certainly do a lot worse than Ville Ottavainen.
Yeah, I mean, he projects to be a big, rock solid, steady defenseman, and that's certainly not going to hurt you in a game like this, where against the Rangers or going forward, where you're just so shorthanded and trying to deal with these injuries. I like him more long term. I might go with Cale Fleury just to make sure you have kind of the veteran player in there. I would kind of lean that way. The Kraken have really done both this season, though. When you look at the forwards, they've called up a guy like Ryan Winterton, who is pretty much in the same boat as Ottavainen, younger guy. You wouldn't expect him to be up at the NHL level that fast, but they weren't afraid to do it. But they've also had times they've called up guys like Student H, McCormick, and Devon Shore. Just depends on which way they're looking.
Yeah, and I think if you are having to look at not just tomorrow against the Rangers, but potentially also Edmonton, I think you probably want Cale Fleury. He's a better skater. I think that's something that I would be a little bit more worried about if you're looking at the Edmonton game than the Rangers game, is I'd want the more surefire skater in Cale Fleury rather than Ottavainen, who, look, he's a good skater, especially for somebody his size, but I could see him maybe having some trouble playing against the speed that the Oilers have. That would be a really rough situation to throw somebody into for some, NHL action like that. I think okay, let's see. Kraken hate Europeans confirmed. I will happily trade my sleep schedule for wins from Laura there. I don't think you're alone on that. It seems like here. Sam, if Lars can't go tomorrow and Dunn can't either, who's your call-up choice? I guess we just talked about that. B, no refs. No, the refs missed like 4 to 5 really obvious penalties. I don't think they were calling the Kraken unfairly for their penalties, but they straight up ignored a bunch of them committed by the Pens. Again, it's one of those, like, there's nothing you could do about it, is the unfortunate bit, right? Like that's always been the hard thing with reffing in sports, is there's no, you just have to eat it, unfortunately.
And today it didn't decide the game. Like the
No.
Penguins were going to win just given the effort from both teams.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it does, at least it helps that it wasn't like a close game where it felt like
Yeah.
that made more of a difference. Let's see, if the Adam Larson Iron Man streak comes to an end tomorrow, I will be very sad from Lindsay. I think we will all be very, very sad. Be very, very unfortunate. Let's see. B, honestly, I was thinking Dunn's probably out sick. Hack mentioned after last game that a lot of people aren't 100%. So I guess maybe there's a flu going around. I know, like I said, in other aspects of my life, that flu is going around. So it wouldn't surprise me. CJ, the boys did hit the post a few times today, so it could have been closer. This team in the post, RJ, do they put magnets in the puck? Like, what is going on?
Well, I think today also you had Jari playing pretty well. You're maybe gripping the stick a little bit tighter just because you know your team's shorthanded and because you know that like that just pucks aren't going in for you, right? When you're trailing, when you're chasing a game, I think that's a temptation to maybe try and kind of hit the corners of the net, try and have that perfect shot, which can result in a lot of posts. We saw that too when the Kraken really weren't winning as many games as they have been. And this is the first time they've trailed by multiple goals since before the win streak started. So
Yeah.
just playing in that situation isn't one they're super familiar with.
That is something that I've noticed about this team, right? Like when they do struggle and they're going through things like that, they don't tend or at least they don't seem to have that person who kind of stands up and says, "Hey, let's just keep it simple instead." Right? Like let's just grind it out. Like let's go heavy on the forecheck. Let's just try to get a dirty goal, a greasy goal, right? And we've talked about this before when they were struggling, especially back at the beginning of this season when they were really struggling offensively, where it's just one of those things of, look, the rest of the goals can come later. Let's just focus on getting that first one and let's just play that kind of gritty hockey that it's not pretty, but it can be effective when you're struggling and just go for it. And I feel like this team, I don't know if it's that they don't have somebody who steps up and wants to play that way, or if it's just none of them really want to play that way. They just don't ever seem to play that way.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem to be the case. Like I couldn't tell you why exactly.
Yeah. Um, Mimi, overuse of Joey Decord, lack of load management. If you don't trust Drigger, why is he getting 3.5 million? I don't know. I think he was okay in this one. I thought this was a bounce back game for Joey Decord after he looked personally a lot rougher in that game against Columbus than he did today.
Yeah, and again, it's a back-to-back too. So Drieger's getting one game, Decord's getting one game. I think the order doesn't really matter a whole lot. And I mean, as for why Drieger's getting 3.5 million, I mean, you signed him a couple years ago, had very different ideas for where he'd be. You didn't see the injuries coming. That's why he's getting paid what he's getting paid.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people saying they thought Chris Drieger would start today. Let's see. Is it just me or is PPG one of the more annoying arenas? Something, someone, or some flightless bird always blocking the camera, not to mention that rally horn from Christian RJ.
That horn is terrible. I know you probably don't hate it as much as I do, Dylan, but it's stuck in my head.
I can acknowledge an annoying horn. It's not great.
Okay.
I will give you that. I'll give you that. There's lots of things. Look, I've never been there, so I can't speak to anything in person. I can tell you this. I very much agree with everybody on the Discord. It was like the DJ is just not great because the DJ was not great there today. I will add one onto the pile there. I'll go for it. Um, Elizabeth, I enjoyed my prosecco and dinner. Oh, there you go. That's some good stuff.
Nice.
Jessica, who made you French toast and bacon? I did. I made it for me and Afra. It's gotta take care of us.
Afra didn't make it for you?
No, Afra didn't make it for me. She just got to enjoy it. Zoe had French toast and cheese potatoes. That's some good stuff.
Nice.
Lindsay with some French toast brunch. So there we go. Everybody was on board with
French
you,
toast more,
RJ.
I guess.
Yeah, of course. That's where you got to go it. Via Ren, you could eat French toast and bacon afternoon. I do that very regularly. You could ask RJ. I eat breakfast food all times a day.
Yeah, you're a big fan of breakfast for dinner. I know that.
Yes, definitely. Chip, with all the factors working against us today, I do think we have to question our depth a little, given that we got shut out. We're missing some key players, but I would have expected one goal. I don't know, RJ. Like I get where Chip's coming from, right? Like you at least want to
Mhm.
get on the board, but I also feel like they were close a couple times, and it was just a game in which nobody seemed to be feeling it.
Yeah, it seemed to be a whole team-wide thing. I don't think they generated a ton of offense. I don't know if they even really deserved a goal in this game, given the chances they generated or didn't generate, really. But it just felt like the whole team just ran out of gas. And you know what? In the greater context of everything, I kind of don't blame them.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I'm kind of there with you too.
And
Rand,
you also don't know how many of these guys have that flu bug or whatever's going around and just are
yes.
playing the whole game with it too.
And they're sleepy, RJ. They didn't get nap time.
Yes, I know.
It's a thing. I'm just saying, go ask professional athletes. They will tell you that's a thing. Like it's
You don't
not.
need to tell me how
Yeah, I
important sleep
know. I
is.
know. Well, that's true. Rand, Bailey's a coffee and a load of laundry. I got to do laundry too, actually. Thanks for reminding me. Lonnie, I was going to wake up a little early and make some French toast, but mornings, they do happen. Ask RJ. Sam, question: will the Leafs' inevitable playoff choke be more heartbreaking than what the Cowboys experienced last night?
I don't know, just equal. I mean, look, the Leafs and Cowboys. I love that there's such a great analogy because a lot of people I know are football fans, but aren't necessarily into hockey or vice
Mhm,
versa. It's just such a 1-to-1, right? The Leafs are the Cowboys of
mhm.
the NHL. The Cowboys are the Leafs of the NFL.
Look, there are just things in life that you know are going to happen. They are inevitable. You can set your watch to them, and those teams blowing it in the playoffs is just one of those things. It's been my entire lifetime. Like that's just the way it goes. I don't know. Um, Tammy on the Leafs, the Cleveland Browns of hockey. No, because the Leafs can like be good and make playoffs for long periods of time
Yep.
without winning. Definitely closer to the Cowboys there. Lindsay, someone get Adam Larson on emergency right now. Oh, I got to imagine they are for sure. Everyone's talking about it. Yeah, the
Yep.
sickness stuff is real. Um, let's see. What if they're both? Yeah, what if Dunn and Larson are both out against the Rangers? Do you fly out Otto? Yeah, I think if you know today that they're both going to be out, you go ahead and make that move. You bring up
Yeah.
somebody.
Him or Flurry. Yeah.
Yeah. Daniel, I remember when I was hoping we would get to 10 wins before we got to 15 losses. Well, they totally blew that out of the water. It's true. Like, it's important to remember, like, despite everything today, they just won 9 games in a row. They got points in 12, right? Like, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean that win streak. Now that it's over, we kind of finally look back at the totality of it, and I mean it was really clutch at this point in the season. You go 500 over that stretch, and you're really out of the playoff conversation.
Yep, as Ricky's saying, scheduled loss. Back to backs do that. More normal time will be a better measure. I agree with that. And then, especially if you maybe get somebody back from injury and or illness tomorrow night, more regular start time. I just think we're going to see the Kraken team we've been used to seeing for that game and not the one that we saw this morning.
Yeah, the
Uh,
schedule can be tough too. That's why you don't see many of these long win streaks because something will come in the middle of it, and you'll just have a game where everything's kind of stacked against you. I mean, there have only been 62 10-game win streaks in the history of the NHL. There's a reason it doesn't happen that much.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think the Rangers are kind of on a downswing right now, so it's not impossible. Then again, everyone seems to turn it around when they play the Kraken, so I don't want to get my hopes up. That's true, but you know what? Here, we'll split the difference, RJ. Kraken, the Rangers can play a better game than they've been playing and still lose, right? And then it's a win-win. Everybody does their thing, and we're good.
Yeah, perfect. Just balances out just like that.
Yeah, exactly. Tammy, this loss doesn't bother me. A lot of things out of our control, and both Ebbs and Canner were close a few times. Oh man, that one that Jared McCann had that he shot just high and wide, RJ. Oh my gosh, because that one was going to be unstoppable. It was moving so fast.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that quick release, right? Sometimes some of those shots, if they're on net, they're a goal. The goalie cannot possibly track it. That was one of those just missed.
Yes, definitely. Viharen, just me or was Riker letting guys get behind him a lot today? I I don't know. I mean, everybody else the team was kind of doing that, especially as the game went on and you were trying to push for goals. It wasn't too much of a problem in my opinion, although I don't know, it's still not something you want to see become a habit.
Right, but it's the kind of thing I didn't notice a whole lot till the end of the game. It was kind of backloaded, in my opinion, from
Mhm.
him. And at that point, you are pushing, you are trying to be a little bit
Yeah.
riskier. I can excuse it.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where I'm at with it there as well. CJ, on a different note, any rumors on when the Kraken yearly skills competition might be held?
I haven't heard anything. I'm sure they will probably do it again this year. I mean, what was it like January, February time? The last couple
Mhm.
years. So I'm sure we'll probably get an announcement on it soon, but I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, and it's one of those things the team doesn't tend to announce a lot of stuff while they're on the road. They tend to wait and wait
Yeah.
for when they're in town. So I think you got to wait till the end of the week to have more news on stuff like that. Daniel, seemed like there wasn't much fight in the Yanni Cats and Dogs line. That line, I mean, Hackstall shaking things up a little bit there with that line, RJ.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I liked very early on in this game. I mean, they were on top of the Penguins forechecking. They had some of the best looks of the first period. I remember a moment where Ellie Tolvanen, like one of the best forechecks I've seen from a player this season, just right on the Penguins defenseman, forcing a turnover. I think it was their first shift of the game, but it did kind of wear down toward the end of the game, and just kind of went along with the whole team theme of just that fatigue building up.
Yeah, and I did like Shore being the guy kind of in for that line because I feel like he could match the energy that maybe Yanni Gord tends to have down the middle for that group. I felt like Shore was the right call to use there. And then yeah, Yanni Gord, just to be pretty honest, I know everybody kind of had off nights, but like I felt like Yanni Gord was missing that spark a little bit in this one, that especially because we've seen it so much this year, right? In 2024, these last couple games, we've seen that a lot from him. He seemed to be struggling, especially on the faceoff dot, 38.5%. Wenberg struggling 31.8%, RJ. I mean, I know I always kind of harp on them for winning too many faceoffs, but both of them down the middle, I don't know if it was just the absence of Matty Beniers being there with them or what the deal was, but they both looked off.
Yeah, they did. I mean, Gord, I think to an extent maybe kind of knew it. Like at the end of the game too, you could see some of the frustration boiling over. He takes an extra whack at Jari with about a minute to go or so, draws a crowd. You know, you can tell like that's not like a calculated pepper pot move to get the team back in the game because it's 3-0 at that point. You know, maybe that's just a little bit of frustration boiling over.
Yeah, the other thing that I think needs to be talked about with the Matty Beniers absence, RJ, is it kind of disrupts what Hackstall was going for with the 4 lines, the 4-second lines kind of thing, right? Where this is the first game where, like, I'm looking at the ice time right now, and he was able to keep things fairly close with the exception of just the 4th line and those guys kind of dipping, but it just felt like the mojo for everybody got thrown off because of that one change. Because Berkey is obviously missed, but he's been in and out of the lineup all year, so I don't think like it messes with too much. But everything just seemed weird and off with what they had to do on that top line.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, you know, McCann certainly is capable of stepping in there into that spot, but like you're right, there's the distribution of the ice time as I'm looking at it for the different lines. It's really slanted, and the other lines couldn't kind of play the same roles that they had been. They'd kind of have to do too much, I guess, but also we're playing less.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird spot. Like, look, the Kraken depth had been contributing for them. It was contributing goals. We were seeing that. That's how you get to 7 goals, right? You need depth to get to that level. And they just weren't put in a position where they were able to maybe get into a rhythm or get anything solid. If you are Devon Shore, right? You played 8 minutes. Like, that's not enough to get into any sort of rhythm out there and try to get something going, especially if you're going to then be thrust between, Bjorkstrand and Tolvanen and try to replicate something on that line, right? But you've only played a handful of minutes up until that point. Like, it's a really tough spot to be in. And I felt like that injury to Maddie really kind of set all that stuff into motion there. Speaking of from Matty to Maddie, do we have the cap to call up a few players, or would someone need to be put on LTIR, RJ?
That's a good question. And the Kraken are really tight to the cap. Looking at it, just I haven't done the exact calculations, but I think they have just enough to call up maybe one player. I don't know about 2, but I think they could call up 1 at this point.
Yes. Sam, also, if they do call up Altavainen, that means their first 4 picks the Kraken had in their 2021 draft class would have played NHL games pretty darn solid. That's really solid. Just to have 4
This
picks in any
quick,
draft
too.
class. But yeah, especially this quick, that was your first ever draft class, like as a group and everything coming together. Like, that would be really, really special if the Kraken could make that happen. So maybe, I don't know, does that sway you a little bit, RJ?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, you know, that would be kind of a cool milestone to have with the top 4. And you know what? The number 5 would be Jacob Melanson. And like, he doesn't seem all that far off. Maybe next season we see him too. That's really impressive.
Yeah, definitely. Light, I see that DJ Singleton and I have to continue our efforts as Otavine and truthers to keep spreading propaganda. I mean, truths. That's true. Oh man, Edward, Kraken shots, loving the goalposts, the love story for the ages. That is definitely true. Um, because we played the Penguins, I know you'll talk about this more on your armchair GM chat later this week, RJ. Or next week, early next week, I should say. Lindsay asking, with Nylander off the table, do you think Gensel could be the Kraken's big fish free agent signing this offseason?
I mean, he does move pretty close to the top of the list at this point, as far as just available players between him and Reinhart. I think he's still maybe a tier below or a half a tier below the kind of player they should be looking at. But he's certainly a possibility and definitely someone we're going to look at on the Armchair GM chat.
Yeah, definitely.
And Sean asking, can we look at Gensel, the next Armchair GM,
yeah.
RJ? Yes, we can.
Definitely. I like that too. I like Jake Gensel. He's always been great on all my fantasy teams. Preserving Drieger's 9-game limit, assuming Cap Friendly's right about him being on emergency recall. Yeah, I mean, it's still an emergency recall, right? Just because the emergency exists as long as Gru is out.
Yes, I believe so. Although I haven't gotten any confirmation from the team that it is an emergency recall. That's something I'm going to ask about as soon as they get back home, and try and figure out if this is a regular call up, because I don't think he's hit the 30-day mark yet. Well, he must be close.
It's
Maybe he
gotta
would
be
have hit.
really
He
close,
would have
right?
hit the 30-day mark by now, I think. So that's something I'm going to ask the team for clarification on.
Is there, let's see, transactions on Cap
Well,
Friendly December 10th. Yeah, so it's been 30 days.
yeah, so I don't know, because Cap Friendly on the team page shows as an emergency recall, but I think on their transactions, when it happened on their transaction tweet, it didn't say anything about emergency recall. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at that for the transaction for the date. So yeah, the fact that it's over the 30 days would make this interesting. That's for sure. Stratix, so what was your favorite goal of the streak? Like, there's no
Oh
favorite goals
man,
today. That's a tough one because there were so many. Like, you know what?
that's too big a question.
No. It's really, really easy. I'm going with the Will Borgen goal in the Winter Classic because it looked like he did it right towards us. Right where we were sitting, RJ, for the Winter Classic, it was just like on a line right at our faces. Will Borgen, I'm convinced, was trying to throw that puck right up at us.
I like that goal too. We had a great angle of it too. I'm trying to think of another one. I do like the Tolvanen goal from the Winter Classic because it was just so early in that game and it set things off on the right tone. Um, I don't know. Let me think.
I mean, there's been
Come up with
pretty
one
ones.
quickly.
Like, pick any of the Alexander Wenberg goals because those have all been awesome highlights, right? Like, there's been a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, there has been. What was the Tanev goal against LA? The opening goal. Do you? I mean, that was a long time ago. Do you remember
It
that
was a
one?
very long time ago. I do remember that one. Let's see.
You just kind of follow the puck into the net off the
Yeah,
face-off. Was that what it
yeah,
was?
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. That's what it was. It just kind of like added to it a little bit there.
Yeah, Schultz in overtime against Philly was pretty cool too.
Oh, that was really cool, actually. Yeah, I that one was really nice. Absurdly saying the way Forsland and Edzo were talking, I feel like there may have been some travel issues that compounded the tiredness slash offness of the team for this game too. Yes, I mean they had that getting from Buffalo to Columbus, they had to kind of go up and around to avoid some weather to get there, and that does throw you off. Again, it's one of those things where it doesn't get talked about often around professional sports teams, but certainly in a sport like hockey where you have such a travel schedule that they have, right? Like baseball, yes, you're traveling a lot and you're playing basically every day, but you're playing multiple games in each city as you travel. So you're able to kind of get reset a little. When you're a hockey player and you're on a road trip like this, you're playing a game, you're finishing a game, and keep in mind local time, you're finishing a game, and by the time you're able to get out of there, it's like 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night. Now you got to go drive to get bus to an airport or get bus back to a hotel, get your stuff, go, then get bus to an airport. Then you got to get on a plane. You got to fly wherever you're going. You get off a plane at like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, go to an airport, try to fall asleep, get some sleep, get up, go to a practice or a morning skate, go back, take a nap, get back there for a game. Like it's really, really intense. And this is partly where RJ, the afternoon nap comes in for all of these players, because sometimes that's the only way you can get to 6 or 8 hours of sleep in a 24-hour cycle for these guys. And so I do think that it's one of those that, again, the morning game just disrupts that little bit extra, especially before a back-to-back. You're already stressing about that, trying to figure out the logistics of that, and it can just completely throw you off. Or any extra travel is more hours where you're not really being able to rest up and recover, and that's maybe why they were a little bit more susceptible to something like an illness.
Yeah, and broadcasters are not immune too. I see all the comments about the broadcast there. Look, I think Enzo was a little bit grumpier than usual on the broadcast. It affects everyone differently. And you know what? I think it affected Forsland totally differently because he just seemed happy. He seemed jolly this morning. He was ready to go, excited to have a morning game in Pittsburgh. And it created some of the best banter that we've seen, I think, all season on the broadcast. So many great lines. Like Forsland was on a roll. I see Jessica
Mhm.
here. I like when he referenced the World Wide Web, and JT was like, "Oh boy, Stratic." I enjoyed when John jokingly telling Enzo his career was in a tailspin. Yeah, Enzo
Yes.
talking about how great it was in that building calling games with Doc Emmerich, and Forsland just casually, "Well, your career has hit a tailspin as of late." That was great. I mean, my favorite line I think was. Of the Tanev kind of hooking no call, and Edzo
Mhm.
was kind of up in arms about it. And Forsland said, the only arms up in the building were Edzo's.
Yes.
And he seemed to take offense to that a little bit. But then afterward, too, when JT's like, for what it's worth, I agree. I think it should have been a penalty, but I just I didn't have my arms up. I didn't want to, join the unpaid officials, as Forsland would call them. Uh, and then Forsland's like, hey, don't call Edzo an unpaid official. He is official and he is paid.
Yes. No, they definitely had some good moments in this one. It was good stuff. I mean, look, they're always good, and I just like having Edzo around for these, right? Like he's been absent for a lot of the Kraken broadcasts this year, and it's nice to have him around because I do feel like he brings out a different side, particularly in John Forsland, right?
Yeah.
And things get a little sillier, things get a little goofier, and I'm always for that. I think that's good stuff there. Let's see. Stratic. Also, I think Hackstall missed the playoffs the last time his team had a 10-game streak per GDM Malkin over on Discord. So maybe it's good the Kraken lost this one to avoid the hack 10-game streak jinx.
Maybe, yeah. That I can't believe it. Looking at those two instances.
Yeah, it's got to ask Hackstall about that. What's it feel like to be the one coach that has the 10-game streak jinx?
Yeah. Well, the Buffalo Sabres were the other team that had a 10-game win streak and did not make the playoffs. So, I mean, it's the Buffalo Sabres of the mid 2010s. So I get it, but
yeah, I was going to say, I feel like that goes without saying. Chip, we're one of 3 shutouts that happened with 3 goals today. That is strange. See, it's just a weird day. It's all the morning hockey. It's just hockey players aren't used to doing this, or afternoon hockey if you're on the East Coast.
Yeah.
It's just it's the way it goes. It's the way it goes. Let's see. Zoe, at this point, I think most of them are probably sick and fighting through it. It wouldn't surprise me, just given the travel and how intense the schedule's been and everything for them. And the fact that, look, you're in the middle of an 82-game season. Like, it's a grind. This is normally where a lot of teams do hit a wall, right? Like, it's just the Kraken tend to get their walls out of the way at the very beginning of the season. They start slow and they look sluggish, like they've been playing 40 games already, and then they pick it up in the middle of the year when everybody else is tired. So it just seems to be their MO.
Yeah. I mean, especially the way Hackstall was talked about after the Columbus game too. Like, you could tell he knew guys were dealing with a whole lot of stuff and how proud he was. Even though, because normally a coach after a game like that's an ugly win would kind of be like, all right, well, we got to fix this. We got to fix this. We got to fix this. But no, he was just proud of the guys.
Yep, got some good stuff here that I want to get to. First up from Light, though, real quick. Hey, no one's talked about the fact that Matty didn't lose a single faceoff today. Haters will deny it, but it's true. That it is, Light. He was great today on the faceoff dots. People talk about their favorite goal from the streak. Lindsay, the Tatar Dangle goal. Which one, Lindsay? There was 2 to choose from. Which one? Brooke with the Borgie. Stratic, mine's either the Tolvanen Winter Classic goal or the Big Cat breakaway goal. That's right. The soft hands, RJ. That was a good one.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised you didn't go with that one right off the bat.
That's true. Vyren, Yanni Winter Classic goal for me, I think. That one was a good one, too. How about when he's stick handling? Forgot who the player was, but he completely owned him earlier in this one from Christian there, RJ. That was a sweet one. I know you put it out.
He made Brian Rust look silly on that entry.
Yep, definitely. Maddie, I'm still trying to figure out the media stuff. What media staff is allowed to travel with the team? So it varies by team to team. Do you know the answer for the Kraken, though?
No. Well, for the Kraken, it kind of depends from team to team, and it's not based on anything like specific. Each team handles it differently. Also with the Kraken too, I know that's changed from season to season as well. I think with some teams also, there's kind of the idea that you have to like pay your dues for a little bit, and then eventually you kind of earn that getting to travel with the team. It's, some of the social media staff, some of the broadcasters, stuff like that. And so, yeah, it really just depends.
Yeah, I've heard of some teams. I mean, because you're talking about like a full size plane, and obviously a hockey team's not that big, so you can have some extra space on there. I know back in the day, some teams would have like beat writers travel with teams. That really doesn't happen too much anymore. Yeah. So like, I definitely don't think that happens with the Kraken. I haven't heard from any of our friends who do that have done that. But it wouldn't surprise me if broadcast crew traveled with the team. Like, that's fairly common these days. It feels like, is that the announcers, some of the key members, the Piper Shaw's equivalents around the league, like for them to travel with the team. I've seen that. I've heard that from several different groups, but again, I don't have confirmation on the Kraken themselves. But it's also easy because that way, all their gear gets packed up kind of at the same time as the team's gear. So you can kind of just take it all to the airport, get all the cameras and cabling and all that stuff lined up and sent off with the team. And you don't have to worry about it not being there for a broadcast, because that would be a disaster for the team and the broadcast crew. Might as well keep it all together. Let's see, Elizabeth, being forced to watch different broadcasts. I really appreciate the Kraken ones. They are fun. That they are. George, sorry if this has been mentioned, but is Riker's ELC now burned? Should strategy be to keep him on the roster and suit him up as much as possible?
Yeah, because he is. It was today game number 10 for him. I don't know that he wasn't a slide candidate because he's too old, I believe.
Right, because this isn't. I don't think this is him on an ELC, right? They had to.
Well, no, he's on an ELC.
Well, he's still on the ELC, yeah.
But I don't think he was slide eligible.
Right,
and I'm looking at it right now, just checking. Yeah, no, he's not eligible for an ELC slide because he's too old. He's 22 years old. I believe you have to be under 20 for that.
You do. So yeah, they didn't have to worry about that. So they can still kind of keep to whatever plan that they had for him.
Yeah, and via rental, I had that in chat as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a weird day in general. There's still time though, especially for those of us on the West Coast. I mean, there's a lot of day left. It's only 1:30. Everyone talking about what breakfast they ate for the game. Meanwhile, I didn't get to eat breakfast and I'm still trapped at work. Lol, from Lights. Sorry to hear that, Light, buddy. Deserve better.
Get some food in you. You need nutrition if you can.
Yes. Don't know what work is for you, but hopefully you're able to get there. And Jules asking, if you could eat, what would you have eaten? Which I don't know. Maybe that's teasing too much. I don't know.
I know, right?
That would be tough. Yeah. I mean, look, there's not too much to really say more about this one. RJ, we kind of covered everything. It was just an off game in weird circumstances. It feels like.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's pretty much that simple, right? I mean, you're missing a lot of key players, whether it's from injury or illness. You battled as much as you could, but the cards just were kind of stacked against you today, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it besides just regroup for the next game.
Yeah, and look, you get a chance to turn things around pretty quick because the Kraken are turning around pretty quick. Going to New York, I mean, heck, they might already be on whatever travel they are doing to get there right now, RJ. That's how fast these teams can move sometimes. What are you expecting from them tomorrow night? Obviously, I expect probably a better effort just because of the more normalized time. I think we'll see a better effort from them. I know it's hard to predict because we don't know the situation around all the injuries and illnesses that they have going on. Got to think we'll see Chris Drieger, but I don't know. I could see them maybe going back and simplifying their game a little bit, especially if they're going to be missing one or more of their regular blue liners. I think we might see them go, hey, look, we're going to have more controlled zone exits instead of trying to force passes with guys who aren't used to doing that or things like that, right? Like I could see them kind of do the simplified game that they didn't do for this one. I could see them maybe have that tomorrow against the Rangers, just in light of everything else.
Right, and slowing down the game too. I think you're going to want to see a low event game from the Kraken, really just kind of muck it up, see if you can have it be one of those low scoring games that looked a lot like the games did at the start of this win streak, or the win streak that just ended. Maybe aim for like a 2-1 game, try and get your point out of this one, and just make sure there aren't a whole lot of chances either way.
Yep, definitely. And look, we will find out tomorrow what the Kraken are doing there. In the meantime, though, everybody, hope you enjoy the rest of your game. Again, it's a great day for some midday mini golf over at Flat Stick Pub. Definitely got to shout that out. That's something I would do if I lived closer to a Flat Stick Pub location. Unfortunately, I'm a few thousand miles away. It's a small hindrance to those midday golf plans.
Expand one location in Southern California, Flat Stick. Come on, right by Dylan.
There's space in the backyard is all I'm saying. So I want to give them a shout out for sponsoring as always. Thank you everybody for joining us. I know it's an awkward time to be joining us and spending the holiday here, or your time at work for several of you as well. Thank you for spending it with us, and we will see you all tomorrow night after that Rangers game.